Kakadosh Boker Or Masechet Gittin Daf Gimel Amud Aleph 53A1. If you remember yesterday, we were talking about that according to the Shitav Menasech, which is basically serving the wine to Avodah Zarah, we asked that if somebody's going to serve wine to Avodah Zarah, he's doing an Isur Doraita, he's chayav to be killed. So what does it mean then that in such a case, where if he's going to be killed, he doesn't have to pay any money? So he said no. He says, Manda Amar Menasech, Maita Lo Amar Me'arev, Amalecha Me'arev, he tells him Me'arev is Midamea, which means if you're going to come and you're going to mix it together, it's also exact same halacha as being Midamea. Being Midamea means that you're putting Truma and Chulin mixed together, right? Dimu'ah, right? What do you call that? Something that you don't know if they took off Trumot or Masrot? Demai, right? So here it's Midamea, even though Demai is with an aleph, this is with an ayin, but Midamea is going to be, right, over here, the concept of mixing them together. The idach. So now the other one, which is according to Shtat Shemuel, that he's going to come and he's going to say that the Mishnah is talking about somebody that mixed the yain nesech, kasher, with this, right, yain. What is he going to say on this? So he says it's a knasahu. What does it mean knasahu? It's a knas, right? Umi knasa lo yalfinan. And we never learn from a knas, meaning that over here, this was a knas, right? That you cannot learn from somewhere else. So for since entire chiyuv was a knas, right? So he comes and he says, so it comes out that if it was only going to be written, right, the mitameh or midamea, they're going to be chayavim b'tashlume nezek, right? We wouldn't have known of me'arev. Because one more time, mitameh means that he's tameh, he comes and he impurifies somebody's stuff. So now they can't eat it, right? Or for example, midamea, right? Midamea was going to be mixing it together, and then the me'arev was going to be of the yain nesech. Okay? But according to the Manda Amar, that you do learn one penalty from another penalty. Why do we need all these cases? Which means like this. Usually, on a penalty, we cannot usually learn them together. Because many times a penalty is not a karadim. It's not really the justice. It's that, for example, it could be that all of a sudden now we make a new rule. We see that there's too many people that are speeding. So all of a sudden now, usually if you were speeding, you would have the regular, whatever, whether it's going to be points and learning and knas or whatever it is, fine. If all of a sudden they see that there's too many people, what do? They double the fines. So that's called a knas. That's called extra than what they're actually doing. So in such a case, I can't say, you know what, you just went right now and you didn't wear a seatbelt, so now I'm going to give you a double knas. He says, but why? He says, no, because right now we're in the double knas mode. No. There's not to be. You cannot learn usually from one knas to another knas. Because there we saw that you had to install this knas, because if not, you would get out of it. You would get into a problem. So therefore, they came and they gave a penalty, a hefty penalty. So therefore, they are okay, fine. But in every case, you don't say that. So he says, but if there is a mandamar, then you do learn a knas from knas. So if you do learn one knas from another knas, so why do I need all these cases of Mishnah? Metameh, medamea, me'arev. So says the Gemara, tzricha, you need all the cases. Says, you know why? The itana mitameh, if it was only going to be written mitameh, truma, if it's talking about truma, havamina mishum legamre. I would have thought to say because you would just made it lost completely. Vi mitameh lechulin, but if you contaminate the chulin, mishum dasuli gom tuma lechulin, but it's you're not allowed to cause tuma to chulin in itself, right? So there's a difference, which means like this. One more time, truma that becomes tameh. What do you have to do? You burn it, right? Truma that becomes tameh, you burn it. Okay, so there's nothing what to do. Nobody could eat it. Okay, now chulin, technically speaking, I could eat chulin to me. You could eat chulin to anybody. Could eat chulin to me. Obviously, if the person's a kohen, or I could. Now it's going to be mitameh oti. You're right. You are what you eat, right? But afterwards, if I go to the mikveh and all do all these things, okay, so I'm going to become tahor, no problem. But what? Well, yeah, but then afterwards he won't be able to go to the Bet HaMikdash, or he won't be able to touch Turma for the next whenever it is till he becomes pure, right? But the mitzvah the chulin, there's no isur. Now, usually we try to eat everything b'tahara because we don't want to ultimately contaminate whether it's Turma and all these other things. You understand? Fine. What? So now he comes and he says like this. So he says, but right to do with the Eretz Yisrael, there's a special halacha. you're not allowed to contaminate chulin in Eretz Yisrael. Meaning, chulin is not the same. This chulin is regular food. So truma has to be on a level, right? But chulin, you can do whatever you want with it. It's regular food. But here in Eretz Yisrael, it's a special ma'ala. So he says midamea, right? Elmaleh, I would say there's no problem of being midamea. So he says v'im yeshemina midamea. But if you only taught me midamea, yishum deshchiach, because it's very, very common. Which means if I want to come and I want to do something to you, I could do it very easily. I come and I'm midamea, and now that's it. You can't eat it. Aval mitameh dorushli, but to make it tameh, it's not that shchiach. So maybe since it's not common, I would say they never made such a degree on it. So you would have to pay and all these things. Now if you only taught me the other two cases, which was mitameh and midamea, mishum delo kim neveram, there's no kim neveram. There's no other punishment. Meaning you don't get a death penalty or you don't get anything if you made something tameh. So he says, avalam nasech, the kim neveram b'menasech. You are kim neveram. If you came and you brought wine to Avodah Zarah, you get killed. You just did Avodah Zarah. Yeah? So he says, Elmaleh, Kamashmalan comes teach you like Rabbi Yirmiyah. But we just said that if you're going to come and you're going to pick up the yain nesech, tzorech nisuch, and now you become a gazlan, now you have to pay the money. So even if afterwards you came and you did do the yain nesech, you get two punishments. Meaning like this: the regular alachot of kimle b'draba mineh means is when it's going to be at the same time. If it's going to be two separate times, we do not say kimle b'draba mineh. Which means like this. I'll give you the example. Imagine right now, right, lavdil elef avdalot, because I'll give you the first case in secular law, and then in the Torah law. Imagine right now you have somebody that comes, and he does 10 different avirot. Yeah, he kills, he violates a woman, he steals, and he. Yeah, like Esav that he did on the same day that he did, all the avirot chamurot. He did a whole bunch of different things. Okay, what happens? So when you go to secular court, what happens? They come and they say it goes according to counts. So one count of fraud, right? That's probably the highest, right? Other than if... So, right? What happens is that, that's the highest, right? After fraud, you've got, let's say the murder or the stealing and that. So you got 20 different counts. Okay, fine. He goes to jail. Does he pay anything? Doesn't pay anything. Right? He'll go to jail for whatever amount of times. They just add on the counts of Gamar. According to us, it doesn't work like that. Why? If he killed, and at the time of killing, he destroyed the guy's shirt, does he have to pay for the guy's shirt? No. Because at the same time that he killed, he returned the guy's shirt. So he doesn't have to pay for the shirt. He gets killed, right? And we kill him. What happens if he's on a rampage and he first goes to a guy and he tears his shirt? Then he goes to somebody else and he kills him. What do we make him do?
It's two different
halachot. It's two different counts. For us, since it's two different counts, he has to pay for the shirt and we kill him. Why? It wasn't at the same time. It wasn't at the same time.
If it was on the same person.
It was on the same person at the same time.
No,
that's something different.
Times,
no, also
not.
It has to be in the same time. That's what he says over here. Because here he says that the second that he picked up, right, the yain, he just stole. The second that he just stole, he's chayav on the gezela. Afterwards, right now he comes and he does yain nesech, and we have to kill him for doing avodah zarah. I don't care, but he's already chayav on the gezela, so therefore he has to pay for the gezela. Okay, so he comes and he says, "Uleha the tani avua Rabbi Yavi," and that which the Braita comes and teaches the father of Rabbi Yavi. But Ishona you omrim at the beginning they used to say am tameh v'am nasech chazru lomar af am dameh. So at the beginning, they only taught 2 out of the 3. They only taught am tameh v'am nasech. Remember, remember always going back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says am tameh v'am dameh v'am nasech. They said that if you did it b'shogeg, you're patur from pay, and if you did it on purpose, you're chayav to pay. Remember that. It's always the Mishnah. So at the beginning, they used to only bring down 2 of the cases out of the 3. Ham tameh v'am nasech, but not the medameh. Why be'emet do you need all 3 cases? So he says, sricha, you need it. The Ashmina, as if you're going to tell me right now, metameh is mishum de lo kimle b'draba mineh. When you're metameh something, there's no kimle, there's no bigger punishment. There's only pain. You're metameh something, you pay for it. Avalam nasech, but by menasech, there is kimle b'draba mineh. If you made something like nesech, there is kimle b'draba mineh. Elmaleh, I would say you don't have to pay for it. The Ashmina menasech, if it was only going to be talking about menasech, mishum dekamafsid lebes. You made a loss legamre. Meaning, once something became yain nesech kadish, you're not allowed to benefit from it. You lose it 100%. There's nothing to do. But metameh, you are mafsid legamre. You could still eat it, right? Trumat me'ah, you're right. Trumat me'ah, you have to burn it. But chulin that became tameh, you could still eat it. So fine, so you become tameh as well. So okay, go to the mikveh afterwards, purify yourself. That's it. But you didn't lose it. You could still eat it. Yes, if you only taught me these two cases.
But the wine once is.
If you're going to tell me these two, which is basically the case of the chulin becoming tameh and yain nesech, nishum defsem rubeh. He says there, right? There's going to be defsem rubeh because the yain nesech became legamre gone, and the truma which became tameh, right? Also, he says so. It's only going to be from achal bema or asaka, meaning even truma tmeah, right? You burn it. Or you're allowed to give it to an animal for asaka. Asaka is basically to burning it. You put it as you're using it as bonfire, right, for your pots. Aval medamea, but medamea, there's no hefsed muat. It's only hefsed muat. Why? Just sell it, right, to a kohen, and you sell it only for the value of truma. So therefore, and then everything becomes tawar. Meaning like this: I right now have truma and chulin, right? They got mixed up together. I cannot eat it because I cannot eat truma, but a kohen can. So what do? I go to my local kohen. I say, you know what? Listen, here you have all this stuff. Technically speaking, full value is probably $100, but I don't know how much is the full value because there's also truma inside, right? And the truma I have to give it to you for free, right? And then I have the what's it called, the chulin. So I could sell you the chulin, but so you know, I'm going to sell it to you as a package deal. Here, take 50. I'm going to give you 50% off. Take this. Yeah, whatever it was. Hefsed muat. It's not hefsed legamre. The other one was hefsed rubeh because it's legamre. Here, it's hefsed muat. Here he says that he could sell it. He says, end meim nifchatim kol kach. It's not that much. I don't know how much exactly percentage. I don't know if you want to say 60%, 70%, whatever it is. Right, but it's not going to be completely. Elmaleh, I would say no. So tzricha, that's why he comes and he says, you need it. Okay? Amar Chizkiah, says Chizkiah. Devar Torah. Advar Torah. Somebody that's going to be mazik. His friend with a hezek sheno nikar. Echad shogeg ve'echad mezid. Whether it's a shogeg or a mezid, chayav, you're going to be chayav to pay. Mai tama, what's the reasoning? Hezek she'eno nikar, shemeh hezek. What does that mean? A hezek she'eno nikar is going to be considered a hezek, right? Which means that even though you damage something which you cannot see the damage, it's still considered a damage. So why did they say b'shogeg patur? Kedesh yodio, in order to come and to tell him. Meaning like this, I'm going to ask you like this. If you're going to tell me that why is he going to be patur? If you just told me the hezek shenukar is called a hezek, so it's going to be a problem then. He was just mazik. So why did you say he's patur then? He was mazik. Meaning like this, I come and I did something to Jean Doe. Yeah? Now, Jean Doe doesn't even realize. Right? So now if you're going to tell me hezek shenukar lav shme hezek, I didn't do the damages. But if you tell me that it was a hezek, yeah? We spoke about Jean Doe, that's it. Yeah, and then what happened? So now all of a sudden, right? Yeah. So he comes and he says, what? So fine. So now all of a sudden it becomes a problem. Yeah. So he says, so you know what happened? Why do we say it's patur? You know why they said it's patur? Is because that way you can let him know. Because if you're going to tell him he's chayav, he won't tell him. Wow. He won't tell him. Why would he tell him? You can't even not tell. You're going to eat the cheese. I went and I put a chemical. If you cannot tell, why would I tell him? It was accident. I'm going to be patur. Now that I'm patur, I'm going to tell him, by the way, you should know, accidentally, I mixed it up. That's why. Said. Yes, that's what shogeg. If so, if you're going to tell me that here we're talking about hezek she'eno nikar, and hezek she'eno nikar is called hezek. So therefore we said that even be'emet shogeg, you should be chayav. So why do we say you're going to be patur on shogeg? So you could tell him. So I'm going to ask you the question. So even by mezid, it should be the same thing. Mezid also.
הוא יכשיל אותו anyway.
Right? Why? Because if you're not going to say he's patur, he's not going to tell him anything.
בדיוק, יכשיל אותו.
He just went and mezid. He comes and he put milk in your cholent. I can't see anything. But he was mitameze. That's it. He made it taref. But I don't see anything. So if you're not going to come and you're not going to say he's patur,
גם פה יוכל אותם.
he's not going to tell me that it said that he did it. And he did it b'mezid. So says the Gemara, Hashta leozuke kamechaven, odue lo modele. He says, no. If his entire kavanah was to be mazikoto, do you think that he's not going to come and he's not going to tell him, right, that keilu, right, that he made it asur? If he's not going to make it asur, so what did it help?
הוא רוצה להפיל אותו, שיוכל באיסור.
No, because that's shogeg. You didn't do anything. I'm going to tell you something. I put you in the cheese, I put you some meat.
נכון.
You don't see it.
כי אתה רוצה להכשיל.
But מה זה עוזר להכשיל אם אתה לא ידעת?
להזיק לבן אדם, שיהיה לו עכשיו חשבון עם בורא עולם.
מה החשבון? אתה עשית בשוגג.
לא בשוגג, במזיד.
במזיד זה יהיה הבן אדם שהזיק, לא אתה. אתה אוכל בשוגג. אתה לא יודע מזה.
אז אתה פטור, אז הוא בן אדם פטור מעונש?
כן. יש שאלה בכלל אם הוא צריך כפרה, by the way.
כי הוא לא יודע בכלל.
הוא לא יודע בכלל. הוא לא יודע. אז אומרת הגמרא, says the Gemara, no, you know why? If I want to come and I want to be mazik, for sure I'm going to tell him, but if not, what did I help? If I want to come and I want to mess him up, if I'm not going to tell him that I messed him up, what did I gain? Right? What did I gain? He did an isur? He never knew he did an isur.
That's b'mezid only.
Yeah, there's a b'mezid only. So b'mezid. Why? He doesn't know he did an isur. So because of that, so that's why, because if it's b'mezid, he's still chayav. Because hezek shenikar is chayav. He's not going to let him know. If he's not going to let him know, what was the purpose? The entire purpose was to let him know, to show him, look what I just did. Now you can't even eat it. You know how that is. You know that sometimes it happens. Somebody wants to eat something. He says, you want to eat it? Boom, he puts meat in it, whatever it is. And now he was just milky. Now you can't eat it.
Well, in both cases, he lets him know.
In both cases, he lets him know. The one shogeg is going to be patur, but if not, he would never let him know. But if it's b'mezid, he's going to let him know anyway, because that was his kavanah.
So, מה, הוא מרוקאי? גם יזיק לו, גם ישלם נזק.
Yeah. Yes. But Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, Devar Torah, echad shogeg ve'echad mezid patur. The exact opposite. Really, be'emet, mina Torah, they're both patur. Also shogeg and also mezid. Why? My tama. It's not called hezek. Meaning somebody that does a hezek, which you could not see anything, it's not called hezek.
Wait.
So what is the reasoning why they said b'mezid you're going to be chayav? In order that people shouldn't do it all the time. Imagine right now, you're going to come and you're going to tell me, if you're going to come and make somebody's food tameh, you're going to be patur. So what's going to happen? Yeah. I'm going to go around, metameh, I'm patur. So we don't want that. So in order that we don't want that, we come and say you're chayav. But really, dvar Torah, you're patur.
So how can Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chizkiah have say two very opposite things about what the Torah said?
Happens all the time.
Huh?
Happens all the time.
But this is not an opinion.
There's a machloket. What is? There's the Gemara Tznan, right? We learned in the Mishnah, HaKohanim shepiglu b'mikdash. What happens if Kohanim made pigul? You know what pigul is? Pigul is that they came and they offered a sacrifice, right? But without the proper time, right? Because we said it wasn't the proper, right? So therefore, what happens is that if the Kohanim did such a thing, so imagine he's coming and saying, you know what, I'm right now doing the sacrifice for John Doe, right? And then what happens is that they come and they think, but we're going to eat it at the not proper time, or we're going to sprinkle the blood at the not proper time. It's called pigul, right? So what happens? He comes and he says, mezidim, if they did it b'mezid, which means that they disqualified the korban now, because the korban now is pasur. So if they did pigur, chayavim, they have to pay the owners the money. So imagine, you right now, you just brought a korban, right? Let's say it's a good korban. We don't want to say anything bad, right? You brought a shlamim, right? And, right, what happens is that when you brought this korban, they came and they had the wrong thought and it destroyed it. So now, that's it. Pigur. So they're obligated to give you a new korban. They're obligated to give you a new korban.
How could it be b'mezid?
Hard to understand.
Why? They came in their mind and they said,
We're not going with the music.
why? Why would a person kill somebody else? Obviously, he's got something against the other guy,
Yes,
and he wants to get back at him. Yeah, so he says, he wants a kapara, he wants a this. Go look for it.
He doesn't like community.
Yeah.
But they have to repay the property.
Yeah.
It depends.
Fine.
No, it depends. It depends.
One second. So he comes and he says
Chidush for us,
this.
because we always learn that they don't need. So for me, it's chidush that they
Fine,
need to
okay,
pay.
fine. Okay,
But
afterwards.
it depends on what
The
you buy.
Tanya La, so we're going to learn on this, right? Mipnei tikkun haolam, right? That this deen was because of tikkun haolam. So it's mashma mi'ikar adin, be'emet they should have been patur. But they're going to be chayav because of tikkun haolam. Now, via Marta, now if you're going to tell me hezek shenu kash mezek, that it is considered a hezek, hay shogegim paturim mipnei tikkun haolam, it's the shogeg. They're going to be patur because of tikkun haolam. Really, be'emet they should have been chayavim. Because if you're going to tell me hezek shenu nikash shmei hezek, which means that it is considered damaging, so why are they going to be patur? They should be chayav. Well, they're going to be patur because of tikkun haolam, right? So he comes and he says, like this. He comes and he says, "Hachinam kamir." You're right. Mezidin, you're going to be chayavin. Hashogegin, you're going to be paturin. Why? Because of tikkun haolam, which means that because of tikkun haolam, they came and they made them patur. Was if not, then the Kohanim wouldn't want to bring services or they wouldn't want to do certain things. So therefore, they're going to become patur because of tikkun haolam. Mativ Rabbi Elazar. Ask Rabbi Elazar. I'll say melacha b'mei chatat. If you're going to do a melacha with the waters of the chatat, now remember, if you do a melacha with it, that's it, right? You can't use it anymore. So if you did a melacha with mei chatat, uv parat chatat, or with the paraduma itself, patur midinei adam v'chayav midinei shemayim. Now, by you doing that, you just went and you disqualified it from becoming a paraduma. So imagine you have a paraduma and you worked it. Kaddish, that's it. It's not a paraduma anymore. Same with the waters of the paraduma. Now, what happens is you're going to be patur midinei adam, chayav midinei shemayim. Says the Gemara, you're going to tell me that it is considered a hezek. But dinei adam na so you should be chayav even with dinei adam. Why are you going to be patur? So answers the Gemara, he asked the question and he answered the question. Para sheichnisa lerivka al menat shetinak letadush mechatat sheshakal bahen mishkalot. What are we talking about? We are talking about in a regular case that somebody is doing a melacha with a mei chatat or the parat chatat, he is chayav b'dinei adam. So why did he say over here now that he's going to be patur? He says was the parah that we're talking about is that you brought it when it was a katana, right? And you brought it into, let's say, a barn. Al menat shetinak, in order that it should feed from the mother, right? And shetadush, that it's going to come and it's going to start, how do you call this? Right? So now, the fact that you brought it in was only in order for it to feed from the mother, it's not going to pupusel ota, right? So, what was his...
Ladush.
Tadush is to thresh. No, tadush is a tvua. With a sham, shetadush sham tvua. It's going to do dash. Dash is threshing.
Okay.
So he comes and he says, so in such a case, you're not going to obligate him because of the actions, because when he brought him into the barn, it was just to come and to feed. So that's not poselota. That which became pasul was because he also had kavanah, right? But kavanah is only a grama. Kavanah is not meaning when he brought it in, why did he bring it in? To eat. So he was feeding from its mother. That was fine. So therefore, you cannot be mechayev oto on dinei adam because the rest was grama. The rest was an indirect cause, meaning I didn't take it to do a melacha. I brought it to the mother to feed, but I purposely brought it inside to the mother, and I didn't take the mother outside to it. Why? So he could do the melacha, but that was already a grama. I didn't do that with my own hands, and therefore, in such a case, even if he had that in his mind, you're not going to be chayav dinei adam because at the end of the day, you didn't do it. You didn't do it mefurash. It was a grama. The same thing with mechatat. Mechatat, you took them from mishkolot, which means you put the water on the kafmuz line in order to use it as a weight. So here too, the etzem maaseh, you're not supposed to sell the water to use it, right? Because there's no real melacha. But the machshava is that you're going to use it for other things as well, make it pasul. But that's a grama. So that mazik begrama, you're patur bedinei adam. You're only chayav bedinei shamayim.
Has the same status as shebet?
No. Ve'amar Rava comes and he asks, Mei chatat nun gimel amud bet, 53b, right? Nun gimel amud bet. It says, one second, but I thought that if you took mei chatat sheshakal by mishkalo keshera, it's still kosher. So how did it become pasul then? Right? You remember that when we were talking about water for netilat yadayim, we said that there was. Where did they learn it from? From Paraduma. One of them was from Paraduma. One of them was from the Kiddush Beraglayim, but also from Paraduma. Also from Paraduma. If you look, so he says, "Lakashi asana question. Ha begufan veha kenegdan," which means like this: if right now you're going to come and you're going to put the chefetz inside the water, so you put it inside the water, and that's how you're measuring. By the way, that's how you measure weight. Many times you take water, and if I want to know the volume, what do? Insert what you want inside the water, and according to the water level that goes up, you find out the volume. Right? Volume. I said volume. I said, how do you weigh the volume?
I didn't weigh the volume.
Okay, how do you measure the volume?
Okay, how do you measure the volume? Yeah. Okay, fine. Go back to sleep. Fine, let's see. Right? What is kenegdan? You put it on the opposite thing. It's even John Jack smiling. He says, begufan maaseh ka'avid behu. He says begufan. What is begufan? He comes and he says, because the actual, you're doing a maaseh with the actual, with your hands. So it should also be chayav. Ela idi kenegdan says, no, you're right. You're not actually putting it in the water in itself. But rather, you're putting it on the other side of the mishkal. And it's still another question. If you have a hesech hadat is posel. What does that mean? Hesech hadat is posel the mei chatat. If I right now lost my mind that I wasn't paying attention to the mei chatat, it becomes disqualified that I can't use that mei chatat to purify another person. The mei chatat has to be from the beginning to the end, always in my mind is on it to make sure that it's not just like netilat today. If I come and I did netilat to them and then I have a hesech hadat, what happens? You have to do netilat to them again. Hesech hadat is the exact same thing, just like here. If you right now, you had this mei chatat, and I had a hesech hadat, I don't remember, maybe it became tamei and I didn't pay attention. I had a hesech hadat, so I can't use it anymore. That's what the Gemara says, okay? So Mati, Rav Papa comes and he asks the following question. Gazal matbe'a v'nifsal. Imagine right now, right, you stole a coin, and now the coin is out of circulation anymore. You can't use it anymore, so it became pasul. Or truma, then it's met. You stole truma and became tamei on its own. Or chametz, Pesach, you stole chametz, and then the Pesach passed by on it. Subana, omelo, you could say you could tell the guy, listen, this is yours, take it. Now, if you're going to tell me Hezek Shen Rikard is called Hezek, Hay Gazlanu, he's a Gazlan. He should pay the good amount of money. What's going on? Everyone understood that just what just happened. One more time. Somebody stole Truma. They have the Truma here, all of a sudden it became Tameh. But by itself. Yeah, it became Tameh by itself. You could come, you could say, here, take it back. Yeah, take it back. Says the Gemara, why in the world could you say Arei Shelcha Lefanecha? He says, if you're going to tell me now Hezek Shen Nikar is called Hezek, you're a Gazlan. You have to pay back the full amount of money, the good money. Not just say, this is yours. Well, this is yours. So he says, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzhak, says Rav Nachman, answers the Gemara, Tufta, you're right, it's a good question. It's a good refutation. It's a good question. So says the Gemara, why don't we just say it's Machlokut Tanaim? Right? What was the Machlokut Tanaim? Hamdameh. Hamtameh. Vamdame'a. Vamnasech. If somebody's going to be mitameh, midame'a, or minasech, echad shogeg chayav. These are words that we mean. If Yudah says he's going to be shogeg, he's going to be patur. Mizid, you're going to be chayav. My love, are we not talking about bakami baged? This is machlok between them. The more savar hezek sheni nikash mehezek, more savar, right? Lo shmehezek. That's machlok between them. Do you say that it's called hezek or not? Is hezek sheno nikar called hezek or it's not called hezek? That's a machlok between Rabbi and Rabbi Yudah. Answers the Gemara. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzhak, Dechule Alma, that according to everybody, it's so called Hezek. But over here, bekansu shogega to mezika mipalge. Do you make a knas shogega to mezid? The more savar kansu shogeg to mezid. One of them says you should make a knas for shogeg, even for mezid. Umor savar and Rabbi Yehuda holds we do not make a knas shogeg atu mezid. So basically, everyone agrees that it's going to be considered what? It's not going to be considered hezek, and therefore he says it's only a chiyuv d'Rabbanan to pay back. But the question is, they mean a knas, and they said that if you're going to pay, right, you should pay. The question is, should you also pay it in shogeg, right? Because maybe you're going to do it b'shogeg, and you're going to do something b'mezid. You're going to say that you did it b'shogeg. Yeah, I'm going to come. I'm going to meet there. No, because if you just say that you're going to be patur in shogeg, so then that's it.
זה לא פייר, מה זאת אומרת? אבל בן אדם יש לו לוס.
אבל זה הזק שנקרא לשמי הזק, אדוני. רמי דרבי מאיר דרבי מאיר. And we ask a contradiction from Rabbi Meir to Rabbi Meir. Why? Rami Rabbi Yehuda, and also contradict Rabbi Yehuda to Rabbi Yehuda. Why? The Tanya was learned in a Braita. Hamvashel b'Shabbat. If somebody cooks on Shabbat, Shalom, they cooked on Shabbat. B'shogeg yochal. B'mezid lo yochal. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Because here you see that Rabbi Meir, he makes a differentiation between shogeg and mezid. Shogeg, you're allowed to eat it on Shabbat. Mezid, you're not allowed to eat it on Shabbat, which means do you make a knas shogeg to mezid?
רבי מאיר לא בבגדד.
No.
רבי מאיר לא בבגדד.
What? Which one?
תחילה או בדיעבד? יומותר, if you did it במזיד. I'm sorry, בשוגג. But now you realize that you cooked. Are you allowed to eat? Or just if you ate it?
No, okay, no, you're allowed to eat. We're talking about you're allowed to eat.
Okay.
So here, Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbi Meir, he comes and he says, you're allowed to eat it on Shabbat if you did it shogeg. You're not allowed to eat it on Shabbat if you did it b'mezid. What does it comes out? That you do not make a knas shogeg atu mezid. You just did something with shogeg. It's fine. B'mezid, no. That means there's no knas shogeg atu mezid. In contrast to what we just learned right now, that you do make a knas shogeg atu mezid. Next, right? He says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Yehuda comes now and he says, Bishel b'shogeg yochal lemoseh Shabbat. If you did it b'shogeg, you're allowed to eat it, but not on Shabbat. Moseh Shabbat. Yeah? Ve'b'mezid lo yochal or meat. You're never allowed to eat it. So this is a shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Now again, here, what did you just see? You see that there's ki'ilu concept. There is a difference between shogeg and mezid, right? But he's coming and he's saying that there's a difference when you're allowed to eat it, whether it's going to be on Motzei Shabbat or Olamit. Rabbi Yochanan Asamlan Omer, B'shogeg ye'achel, right? B'shogeg you could eat a Motzei Shabbat for other people, but he himself cannot eat it. B'mezid lo yachel. B'mezid he cannot eat it, right? When Olamit, not him and not other people. So says the Gemara, Kasha de Rabbi Meir, it's going to be a contradiction. Rabbi Meir to Rabbi Meir. The Kasha de Rabbi Yehuda, it's going to be a question of Rabbi Yehuda, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, why don't we make a knas shogega to mezid? And here, right, we were saying that kilu here Rabbi Meir says you don't make the knas, right? And before we said that you do, and here Rabbi Yehuda is saying that we don't make that. We said that you don't. So what's going on over here? So says the Gemara like this: the Rabbi Meir, like a son of contradiction of Rabbi Meir to Rabbi Meir. Kikanis with Rabbanan. When do you make a knas? Only in things the Rabbanan. Here it's Doraita. If somebody cooks on Shabbat, is that a din Rabbanan or Doraita? Doraita. So in a Doraita, says Rabbi Meir, I don't need to make a gzera or knas. It's already Doraita. So therefore, shogeg is one halacha, mezid is another halacha. That's it. Fine. Says the Gemara, the Hamenasech is Doraita. But I thought you told me it's Menasech. Menasech is Doraita. So he says, Kakani said we did make a knas. Answers the Gemara, Mishum Chumra Davda, no, it's because of the Chumra Avodah Zarah. Meaning Avodah Zarah is so strict, right, that even if it's going to be a din Rabbanan, right, we still need a knas on Avodah Zarah. Because at the end of the day, right, it's going to be of the Chumra that even if it's going to be Doraita and everything you want, we still make a knas because it's like a Chumra of Avodah Zarah. So Rabbi Yehuda also like Hashem. It's not a question of Rabbi Yehuda. It says why? Kilo kanis with Rabbanan. When do you not make a knas? The Rabbanan, the Doraita. We do make a knas. So says the Gemara 1 second, right? So he says, if it's going to be like that, so the Menasech is Doraita, we didn't make a knas. So he says, no, because Avodah Zarah is so strict, people separate themselves from it, which means exact opposite logic. The first logic is that because of the Chumrah of Avodah Zarah, that we're so strict with things of Avodah Zarah, nothing. We made a knas even for shogeg, for everything. The second shita is that since Avodah Zarah is so strict, people separate, they distance themselves from it. So because of that, you didn't have to make a knas. Okay? Rabbi Bedoraita. So he comes and he says, right, that Rabbi Meir is also going to argue on Rabbi Meir and Doraita. Says the Tanya, as we learned, right, in a Braita. The Braita is Hanote'a b'Shabbat. Somebody's going to plant on Shabbat. B'Shogeg Yikayim. If you're going to do it b'Shogeg, you're going to be Mekayim, right? Which means that you can leave it there. B'Mezid, but if you did it b'Mezid and you plant it on Shabbat, you have to approve it. Ya'akor, you have to approve it. Uvashvi'it, obviously after Shabbat, right? And the Mishvi'it, b'Meshog Mezid Ya'akor, you have to approve it. These are what we mean. Rabbi Yudah says, B'Shvi'it b'Shogeg Yikayim. On Shemitah, if you did it by accident, you can leave it. B'Mezid, you have to approve it. Uv'Shabbat, b'Meshog Mezid Ya'akor, you have to approve it no matter what. That means on Shabbat we do Shogega to Mezid. This is in the Shita of Rabbi Yudah. Now, according to your reasoning, we could ask the same question. They're both Doraita. Meaning Netiya b'Shabbat and Netiya b'Shvi'it are both Doraita. You're not allowed to plant on Shabbat. So Yisur Doraita, right, of Zorea. You're not allowed to come and you're not allowed to plant on Shvi'it. So Yisur Doraita, Shemitah. So if they're both Doraita, what's going on here?
Only for the Av Melacha or also for the
For everything. Yeah. And Notea is also an Av Melacha. Just one is in trees and one is in seeds. Notea is planting a tree. Zorea is like fruits or anything else, not a tree. Right? So he comes and he says, Maishna Shabbat or Maishna Shvit. The reason why is Amar Omer, why do I say Shabbat? Beshogeg Yekayim Mezid Yaakor. He says Beshvit Beshogeg Mezid Yaakor. Mipnei sheYisrael monin lishvi'it. What does that mean? He says because Israel, they count their years for Shvi'it in order to know when is it going to be Orla, when is it Niter Rabbi, when is it Chulin. So according to those years, that's how they're going to know the Mafreya, the years of when it is. So since they're going to come, they're going to say, you know what, you're going to be permitted to come and to start, planting trees on Shemitah. So we don't want that. So therefore the rabbi said you have to uproot it, because even if you made a mistake with Shogeg, they want you to uproot it so that way you don't make a mistake in anything else. The en monin l'Shabbato, but they don't count for Shabbat. Meaning, even if it's going to be that you planted on Shabbat, nothing bad will happen afterwards because of it. Because at the end of the day, okay, fine, you did it with Shogeg. That's it, come on, you didn't have it on Shabbat. But not because of that, it's going to have a chain reaction to everything else. Here, it has a chain reaction. Because if you planted on Shemitah, everything you count from Shemitah. You count Orla from Shemitah, this from Shemitah, because Shemitah is like the start of the clock. So anything that you do is going to have an effect on it. So because of that, even by Shogeg, you did come and you did make a decree.